All right. Welcome back to Happy Hour with Heather and Guest. This is episode number 47. As always, I'm joined by Heather.
Hello.
And I'm that other dude, Andrew. And we're going to bring you some music and mirth and mayhem, perhaps. We'll see. But today, we're talking about three bands that were it was your turn to choose. So we're going to kick things off with Lord Buffalo, and then a group called ShagStars. And then we're going to go back to the 70s and revisit Lips Inc.
Yeah. Lip sync.
So, Lips Inc. Yep. So, anything you want to mention about Lord Buffalo before we start?
Well, Lord Buffalo, I can't remember when they first came onto my radar, but they did a split with Pale Horse, Pale Rider that is absolutely phenomenal. And when we talked about Pale Horse, Pale Rider, I knew I wanted to talk about Lord Buffalo at some point. So here we are.
Yeah, you got it. You can't just talk about the yin without the yang, or
Yeah,
peanut butter without jelly,
exactly.
or,
Yeah.
or as Smokey once said in Friday, ham no burger. You got to have both. So,
Yes.
okay. The first album we listened to was the self-titled Lord Buffalo, and the first track I picked was Axolotl, which I recognized. If you'll let me indulge for 1 second, I
Sure.
read a short story when I was in graduate school, which was about someone who goes to a zoo and sees an axolotl, which is, I guess, a lizard of some sort. So when I recognized it, I immediately was like, "Oh, track." So okay, so kicking things off with Axolotl.
Okay. It's very soulful, a mix of desert blues and folk, incredibly beautiful guitar and violin. This is the kind of music you can feel deep down. The vocals are so beautiful and they can cut right through you. There's no BS here. It's just this goes straight to your heart and your soul. There's power and beauty.
Would you say that it's razor sharp and it can cut glass?
Yes.
Awesome. Whenever I can make a reference to something, I'll take it. So, yeah, Axolotl is very slow and deliberate. I got a sense of like yearning, like there was a lot of yearning there. Phrase "mad tortured" that my cousin once said when I think we were listening to some, maybe it was a song by one of those 90s bands that was very emo. And he was like, "Yeah, this guy sounds mad tortured." And I remember thinking, okay, I'm going to use that for the rest of my life. And then the tempo picks up and there are more instruments added, some strings. And then I felt like the song was holding on the precipice. It was like in, I don't know if you remember the movie Braveheart, when the British are charging them and Mel Gibson, they have the the tree trunk spears. And he's like, hold, hold,
Yeah.
hold. And then
Yeah.
they finally, so I felt like this song was just hold, hold, hold. And then all of a sudden it breaks through. But really, I mean, not necessarily what I expected. Um, just based on the few bands we've heard the last couple of episodes, I was expecting more of like a distorted stoner rock, and this was much more subdued, which I enjoyed. It was a
Yeah.
nice change of pace.
Yes.
Or
Yeah.
as I used to say when I was a little kid, it's a nice change of pace.
Yes.
Cool. So then next up was Indian Summer.
Yes. And whatever these guys have, I want some. Just pure magic. This is a great folk song that tells a story. There's additional vocals, and when they sing together, it's just truly stunning. I'm really digging the violin. What it adds to the songs is pretty amazing.
Yeah, this was the track. So I briefly told you about this when we spoke before the recording started. This was the track that would, if you and I had a television show about our lives, this would be the song that would play at the beginning. So, like, while I'm getting out of bed and making coffee and starting my day doing homework for grad school, or just surfing the internet, and then there'd be shots of you opening up the post office. But like this would be the song that would be, and I wrote it's subdued and deliberate like a sleepy town, a great opening to a movie, shots of opening up the post office, the story of our show. And then I went on a tangent. I say, who play us? Uh, so and then I probably spent like 15 minutes thinking about who'd be the perfect casting choices for
Yeah,
us. Although
who'd you come up with?
well, I mean, when I was writing my memoir, I was like, I would clearly want Ryan Gosling to play me, but I think probably someone like Jay Moore, who's a stand-up comic who he played Bob Sugar in Jerry Maguire.
Oh
Um,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
just because I've heard, like used to listen to his podcast. He wrestled in high school. I wrestled in high school. He loves the Bad Brains. I love the Bad Brains. So I was like, oh, there are all these parallels.
yeah,
And he's a funny person, so I was like, he could pull it off.
yeah.
You might have to play yourself.
There's no one like me. I know there's nobody. Yeah.
I'm sure that if I racked my brain, I could come up with someone. It
I've
would be
never
one of the
ever,
like
no one has ever told me ever that
you're
I look
freezing a
like a
little.
celebrity or anything, like ever.
Well, there's like so Audie Murphy, who was the most decorated soldier in World War II, ended up playing himself in an autobiographical film about his life called To Hell and Back because he had to play it. So it'd be like the only person who could capture the nuances properly is you'd have to play yourself. So although at some point, like at 4 in the morning, I'll probably wake up and be like, wait a second, I've got it. I know exactly who could play Heather. But
Well, when you do come up with that, let me know because I've never ever been compared to a celebrity ever.
okay. Yeah, I will start. I mean, not like I shouldn't don't I mean I can't compare myself to Ryan Gosling. He'd be like the number one choice. But
Yeah, yeah.
anyway, so and then I said the song as the kid as when I was teaching students, they would say it really hits me in the feels. I felt like this song really hits you in the feels. It's simple, but then there's a powerful progression and there's the accompanying choral voices that are nice. It's sort of like it starts out very simple and then it kind of continues to develop with more additions. It's a great track.
Yes.
So when we do have the Happy Hour with Heather and Guest TV show, Indian Summer will be the theme song.
Sounds good.
Cool. And then next up was Chimaron. I think that's how it's pronounced.
One of their tags on Bandcamp is experimental, and I get it with this song. It There's a lot of different unique sounds on the guitars. It still has a lot of soul, though. They managed to blend a lot of different elements quite beautifully, and what they have, the sound is really unique.
Yeah, this one had more of a rock feel to it. There was a quicker tempo, but as you mentioned, there was some synth in there. Uh, so it's really hard to like pinpoint with an umbrella term. It feels like at times there's crossover with like, oh yeah, this is clearly hard rock, and then all of a sudden you'll just get the opposite instrument, and you'll be like, well, wait a second, this isn't just hard rock. This is, but yeah. Then there was like what sounded like a fiddle or a dobro, which is one of those like it's like a slide guitar that you play on your lap. So it was more of a I wrote more of a southern 50s boogie blues surf. but also some garage rock too. It was like by the end of it, I was like, okay, I clearly have there's not one term that can be used to apply to this track. It's like an amalgam of 10 different things, but it works really well.
Yeah.
And definitely, I mean, definitely, you mentioned unique, and it sounds like Lord Buffalo, just in everything they're bringing to the smorgasbord.
Yeah.
And yes, that was my excuse to say the word smorgasbord. Okay, cool. And next up, we're off their self-titled Lord Buffalo album into what I believe is pronounced Tohu Wabohu.
Sounds good to me.
I looked up is a biblical Hebrew phrase.
Oh,
Yeah, I wouldn't have expected, but it's from the book of Genesis. It describes the condition of the earth immediately before there was the creation of light.
okay.
So, so yeah, think about sort of like a formless void. So the first track we listened to off of this album was called either Raziel or Raziel, Raziel.
Yeah, and it starts out a bit somber. Listening to it reminded me of the wind whipping through the desert. The violin sounds are haunting. I thought of a Western movie where the terrain in the West is really difficult to get through. This song kind of sounds like that to me. And then at the end, it sounds more triumphant, like you're able to get through the difficulties and prevail.
Yeah, now I mean it's interesting now that I've gone back and sort of looked up what the album title, where that comes from. It gives the songs new perspective. So I wrote that this one starts with an ambient sort of spooky sound, like in conjunction with what you were saying about the deserted town, or the opening of a western, and then it becomes really atmospheric with some strings. It's really nice, and then it blends into a subtle jam. So it was interesting because I could see how they were shifting a little bit from their self-titled album with some new sound and new direction, but it's not completely new. It's like it's like if Lord Buffalo was one, then this one is like 1B. It's like just a slight shift.
Yeah.
And then from Raziel into Kenosis.
I don't know why, but I thought of death listening to this song. Then I looked up the meaning of kenosis, which means self emptying. There's a religious meaning, becoming entirely receptive to God, or it could be a gradual process of detachment from inessentials like possessions or material things, or ridding yourself of ego, anxiety, resentment, or judgment. So all of this makes sense when the song reminds me of death. It portrays this so well just with the music.
Yeah, this one I wrote. It had a cool drum intro with the piano. I wrote it's like a song that would be accompanying a car driving through the desert in Las Vegas of like a David Lynch movie. So I definitely picked up on the theme that you also, Death listening to the song, because I feel like Death would be riding shotgun with like Nick Cage in a convertible Cadillac driving through the desert, in the beginning of a David Lynch movie. But then it also had a 60s, like a lot of times when I mention psychedelic stoner, it's like this one felt like it was 60s psychedelic, like I was going to see shamans and in the desert, like stuff like that, like looking for water with a divining rod or something. But really cool. Again, different from the previous album sonically. I felt like this was sort of they're continuing to shift, but it's not a complete breakaway. And then the last song is called Heart of the Snake.
Yeah, and this is a very short song. It's just under 3 minutes. It has a real desert vibe to it. Maybe Americana, which I think encompasses folk, blues, and rock. I really like the different drum sounds. It's all magical. The whole thing. It's just pure magic.
Yeah, this one was like the most 60s psychedelic of the songs that they had on the album or the previous album. It reminded me a lot of I used to listen to a band called Country Joe and the Fish, who they're featured in the Woodstock. They played Woodstock, but they were big in the 60s. Um, and I just remember that sort of psychedelic sound, a lot of ambient stuff, a lot of really subdued guitar riffs. Very 60, like you said, Americana, very kind of like almost country, but not quite country, more like a bluesy type thing. So, yeah, this was really cool because again, they're sort of branching out a little bit into that more experimental direction. But this was really cool. I mean, I feel like it's really great when you suggest bands that are vastly different from the previous bands like. I've noticed that sometimes I'll be like, okay, this band is a little bit more formulaic, but the music they play is so good that I don't mind that they're not changing it up so much. And then there'll be bands like this one where it's like no song is going to be it's the same as the previous. It's like similar, but we're going to just keep adding in elements that make it really cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you haven't, and I'm getting to this a little earlier than I usually do, but hit pause, go to the playlist that Heather's cobbled together, check out Lord Buffalo, definitely worth your time. And I'm looking forward to checking out that split you mentioned with Pale Horse, Pale Rider.
It's phenomenal. Yeah,
I'm
phenomenal.
Sure
yeah, yeah.
And next up, we had ShagStars. The album was, Adventures in Kinkland.
Yeah. So my friend Susan was asking me about Motorhead songs, and then she asked if I'd ever heard of ShagStars, and I haven't. They have a cover of Overkill, which Motorhead also covered. I've never heard of ShagStars, so I listened to this album completely blind. I have no idea who they are or what kind of music they play. Nothing. So I was also really not really able to find a whole lot of information about them. I think they may be from the Netherlands, and I think they may play covers, just for fun.
Wait, I'm sorry, you froze. Either from the Netherlands?
I think I wasn't able to find a whole lot of information, but I think they may be from the Netherlands.
Okay.
And I think they cover songs just for fun. So this album appears to be the whole thing appears to be covers. When I first listened, I was like, wow, what is this? This is not the kind of music that Susan listens to. But each song is like, so they're different. Like, they're different genres. They come from different eras. They're like completely different from each other. Every single song has an explicit tag on it, which I thought was funny. The album is wild, and it seems like there are some pretty obscure songs on it too. There's Orgy, Slaughter, Bite It, You Scum, Overkill, Molesting the Dead, and others that I've never heard of before. So I can't wait to hear what your thoughts are on this.
Yeah, well, I um and I've met Susan before, although I don't know her very well, so I was a little surprised also that she recommended this. But Overkill was, I thought that was their only originals, but it seems like they're mostly covers. Hold on, the thing. Okay, sorry, the we were freezing a little bit. Um, but yeah, going into it, the album was called Adventures in Kinkland, and the tracks that jumped out to me were Orgy Slaughter, Bite at You Scum, Molesting the Dead. So I knew going into it, like, this isn't going to be Rachmaninoff. It's going to be. It actually reminded me of there's a band called Municipal Waste that I like a lot, who is like a crossover thrash punk band, and a lot of their stuff is very tongue in cheek. Um, so going into it, I thought, okay, this might be similar to that, and I was right to a certain extent because they do have some very fast sort of crossover thrash type songs. They don't sound like Municipal Waste, but I feel like the sort of ironic tongue in cheek kind of thought is still there. So they're definitely a band that you should get into if you're just looking for like a good time with fun songs, with a quick tempo, and I thought it was in the spirit of the original. So I will give it thumbs up.
Yeah,
And I know they've got a bunch of other albums too.
yeah.
So
It was insane. I was looking at their music catalog and it's just insane. And it's like, and a lot of songs they cover, I have no idea what they are. They're songs I've never heard of before. So it's kind of fun. It's kind of fun, to kind of listen to these obscure songs and what they do with them.
definitely. Yeah, no, this was again another good pick that I hadn't anticipated, but turned out to really enjoy. Like going into it, I also like bands who, while they take themselves seriously in terms of being great musicians and practicing and putting out stuff, the subject matter doesn't have to be, taboo. Like they're willing to have songs like Molesting the Dead.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I always appreciate that.
yeah. So I want to thank Susan for the suggestion.
Yeah, so it was. Um, and then the last track we have is the single track Funky Town by Lips Inc., which was recommended by the great Joe Bob Briggs for,
Yeah,
he said, to get you in the mood, definitely listen to Funky Town.
yep.
So we added that to our show. And what were your thoughts on Funky Town?
Well, for my birthday, Andrew got me a cameo message from Joe Bob Briggs, who I'm a huge fan of. I'll post the video message on my birthday so everyone can see it. Since I'm a fan of Joe Bob's show, I'm a mutant, and he commanded me to party like a jungle animal on my birthday. It's part of the drive-in oath, and Joe Bob says he enforces it. So to get him to the mood, he recommended watching the 1980 music video for Funky Town by Lip Sync. Um, I hope I found the right video. I mean, I had to go through a lot of videos on YouTube because he said listen to the original 1980 video. I think I found it. Hopefully it's the one that he meant. Um, after I've watched, Funky Town, then I'll be ready to go to Funky Town, where Joe Bob said he wants me to go for my birthday. So Funky Town, it's a disco song about a girl who dreams of going to the big city, which I'm a small town girl, so I can definitely relate to that. The song spent 4 weeks at #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 in 1980. It also reached #1 in Australia, Austria, Belgium, France, Spain, Canada, and the Dutch top 40 at #1. The video features the ballet troupe with some pretty awesome costumes. So I ask you for my birthday to take me to Funky Town.
Yes, and I will. It shall be done. We shall go to Funky Town. Um, yeah, this was obviously a song I had been familiar with. So when it got recommended, I was like, oh, that's a no-brainer. Um, and it's funny because even though it's a one-hit wonder, essentially, for Lips Inc., it's a great. I mean, it's still a great jam. Like
Oh
I was
yeah.
listening to it and rocking around. Did you? I don't know if you've seen the movie with Kevin Kline, In and Out, where he is going to get married after being engaged for a few years and then comes out of the closet.
Oh yeah, I did
But
see that.
but he
Uh-huh.
there's one point where he's listening to like a self-help tape about how not like what really straight men do when music comes on,
Yeah.
and he just starts dancing around that because they're I forgot what song they're playing, but he starts dancing really well around the house, and the tape is like, that's right, don't dance, stand there still, be a man. So when Funky Town came on, I was shaking around the house doing my. I can't really dance so well anymore. Not that I could in the first place, but because of my balance issues, I just do mostly hand jive stuff. So I was doing a lot of hand jive stuff. Um, and if we had a Patreon, I would say we'd put that video on the Patreon.
Yeah, we need to do like a something choreographed for Funky Town and
Sure.
yeah, definitely.
And then the other thing I thought of, which I sent you, was the clip from South Park where Towley, the anthropomorphic towel, gets high and tries to crack into a government facility with a code, and he ends up doing the melody for Funky Town on the keypad. So,
Yes.
but
Won't you take me to Funky Town?
I mean, it really is. It just puts a smile on your face.
Oh yeah, it's like disco to me is happy music. It's music that perks you up, makes you happy. Reminds me of like going to the roller rink and skating to all these disco songs, and it was just fun. And this song is fun, a lot of fun, very catchy.
Yes, got a
Yeah.
great riff, great vocals. Um, the concept of going to Funky Town is just, it's something that'll. I look forward to taking you to Funky Town on your birthday,
On my birthday, which is October 23rd for
October
those that
23rd.
don't.
There, you've heard it there, people. So reach out, send Heather birthday wishes, help her get to Funky Town.
Help me get to Funky Town.
But
Yeah.
yeah, so that
Um,
was Lord Buffalo, ShagStars, and Lips Inc. were the three bands we spoke about today. All great music in their own way, depending on whatever genre you like. Um, but definitely check them out. Watch the playlist, and yeah, and then on the 23rd, help Heather get to Funky Town.
yes.
So cool. Well, I think that's about it. We'll of course be back next week with episode number 48. We're approaching that magic number 50.
Yes.
So, and then
Yes.
the 22nd. So this, not this Saturday, but next Saturday, will be the first Happy Hour with Heather and Guestival live stream music festival with 5 bands: Grave Next Door, Building Upon the Revelation, Clay Soldiers, Afghan Haze, and
Death
Death
and
and Gloria.
Gloria. Yes.
I knew
Yeah.
I knew I'd get them all.
Yes.
So it's going to be awesome. And then the next day, that'll be the perfect send off to Funky Town.
The perfect send off to Funky Town. Yes. Yep.
So, so anyway, all of you out there, thanks for watching. And Heather, always a pleasure.
Thank you.